Good evening from London, wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling, insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Last night, WWE's Backlash Premium Live event took place from Puerto Rico in what was an amazing night with what I would call one of the best crowds in recent WWE history. And to be honest, I don't even think that take is very controversial. But joining me to discuss all of this and more, firstly, we have the co-host of the podcast, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing well. It's an awesome Sunday. We had a sick day, not in just wrestling, but in sports yesterday. I had a trifecta on the Kentucky Derby. That was awesome. Then we had UFC and Backlash, both awesome. And that crowd in Puerto Rico was electric. It's off the charts. That kind of passion, that's what wrestling needs. As often as possible. You can feel it through your television, and I love it. It was a blast.
Oh, it absolutely was. And also joining us today, Mr. Coby Galenzoski, who reviewed Backlash for us on WrestlingRepublic.com last night. How are you, Coby?
Well, I'm always a bit of a pot starter, obviously, with the numbers of the truth with my system, but I'm here. I got my notes for all the matches that happened last night. I'm just ready to talk about it and have a good time.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into all of it match by match here tonight. But also joining us, it's not just us three today. It is also Ignacio. How are you today, Ignacio?
Pretty good. Glad to be back on the show. A little bit of a hiatus. Been a little bit busy on the weekends, but glad to be back to educate the Wrestling Republic staff and listeners on the way wrestling should be. So let's see how this goes.
Oh, gosh. I certainly imagine we're going to get into all of that today. But let's talk firstly about the opening match from last night, which was Bianca Belair versus Io Sky. And I said on last night's show that this match was going to deliver. And it did. It was a banger. It was really, really fun. Perhaps a breakout main roster performance for Io. The crowd loved her. Bianca, she was almost forced into the heel role in the match because of how much the crowd were behind Io. Truly a hell of a match. There was obviously that bad botch during it, which I didn't even notice on first watch. It was Coby who pointed it out to me, and then I was like, yep, that was quite bad, right on the neck. But it was a really, really fun opener. An opener which surprised me. I didn't think it was going to open, but it was a super fun match. But Clark, what did you think about it?
You know, it's funny. I'm a huge Bianca Belair fan, longtime fan of hers and her work. I think she's awesome. I didn't expect this match to open, but I was impressed by both performances. The botch, I understand, not a great look. It's funny, though. It's not easy to forget, but we do forget just how talented bell-to-bell Io Sky is. And I don't know if her style moveset-wise fits being a heel. And I wonder if that might be part of the problem with damage control is like you're not even unleashing the full Io Sky once the crowd got behind her to an extent. And it was split, right? There's still, cheers for Bianca. But at the same time, I'm wondering if this needs to be the first step towards turning Io Sky babyface.
Yeah.
Because she's easy to root for. And stylistically, you just don't see that often. She can do things that other women don't. And, yeah.
She certainly is a badass. But what about you, Coby? What were your thoughts on the opener?
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, it did shock me. It was in that placement at the end. In that placement, and overall, the match was, I mean, it was solid. It was what we almost should have gotten out of a different match. But Io Sky delivered. The crowd was like, if you were on the fence with Io Sky, even at WrestleMania, Damage Control struggled to get reactions. Yeah. Unless you were Bayley, Damage Control struggled. And if you're coming out of that and you're on the fence about Io Sky and you come to Backlash and you see this you watch this show and you see how that crowd felt towards her, the importance was there. You could not tell me that the fans did not make you care about Io Sky. They were electric for Io Sky. Bianca was getting booed. Yeah. And I don't know if it's the booking. I don't know if it's the tunnel ring. Obviously, Bianca was going to make the history that she is. The one thing I have like as a question, and it doesn't add up to me, is the fact that Liv and Raquel show up on SmackDown when nothing matters, and it's legitimately Bianca Belair just getting attacked by Damage Control, and then they're nowhere to be seen when Damage Control tries to come out during a title pit match at a premium live event. That doesn't add up. If you were going to have Damage Control show up tonight, you needed to have the faces come out as well. I'm sick and tired of Bianca Belair going through Damage Control the way they have. The way she has multiple times during this championship reign.
Yeah, I mean, the Bianca Belair Damage Control, it's either Bianca Belair or Becky Lynch Damage Control are feuding with since they debuted at SummerSlam. But Ignacio, what were your thoughts on the opener last night?
Yeah, I thought it was okay. I mean, I still think Bianca Belair needs somebody to lead her to have a good match. Like, she can't have like a really good match on her own. And I think this would have been with the draft and everything. I think this would have been a good opportunity for them to separate Damage Control and maybe reintroduce Io Sky and Dakota Kai on separate shows and vignettes or whatever, just to kind of give them a fresh start, because I don't think Damage Control has really worked out, and they've put a lot of effort and given them a lot of TV time, man. Like, at one time or another, they were on all three shows, Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, and they put in and they just don't think that they've worked out or getting the crowd reactions that they thought that they were going to get. And I think Io Sky just needs to be repackaged, similar to what she was in NXT. I know there's the language barrier there with the promos, but I think her in-ring stuff can get her by. But it was a good match. I'm not a very big fan of Bianca Belair, but I think it was interesting that somebody mentioned, I think it was Clark, that there's some heel tendencies coming out, but I've been seeing little by little since WrestleMania a little bit of heel tendencies coming out of Bianca Belair. So that'd be interesting if maybe they can switch her heel and see if she can get more heat like that, because the old saying goes is the best time to turn baby faces when they're hot, and she's hot with the crowd right now. So they really like her, but I think that's also going to hinder them from turning heel, because she's real good in with the little girls and stuff like that, but I mean, overall, this was a good match. I'm not going to take the crowd reaction into too much consideration. The reason that is because Puerto Rico, it's a hot crowd, and they've been starving for good wrestling for a long time. I mean, I take more into consideration if they were like in Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, or Texas. But so, the crowd was going to be hot for anything that they were going to give up, because they were starving for WWE for a long time.
Yeah, I 110% do agree with that, Ignacio. And yeah, like you said, I don't know if they will turn Bianca Belair heel, because like you touched upon, she's very over with young female fans. Her merch sells well as well. So I don't know if it'll happen, but who knows? But now let's move on to the next match, which was Seth Rollins versus Omos. And what did I say yesterday? Omos, if he's going to be an attraction, needs to win some of the attraction matches. Otherwise, he's an attraction who loses every match. It's stupid. I hate it. And yes, he lost this. Rollins won. Rollins looked good against Omos, and the match was decent. It was. So Rollins now heading into this World Title Tournament does look strong. But the fact of the matter is, they cannot do any more of these attraction matches with Omos now, because I'm just not interested. He's lost the last three. He lost to Braun Strowman, wasn't on TV for ages. He then lost to Brock Lesnar. He then squashed a jobber. Or was it Elias? It was some sort of squash match. I think it was Elias, actually, not a jobber. And then they gave it a few more weeks, and he got randomly announced in a match with Seth Rollins. And yes, MVP justified it somewhat during that promo, which I know you're going to talk about, Coby. But this match, it was fun for what it was. But if you're an attraction, you can't lose every match. You cannot. But Coby, what were your thoughts? Because I know you enjoyed it.
Oh, I mean, I went into this saying I know what's coming, and I knew what was coming, and we saw, that's the thing. I called the fact that he was going to hold and reverse the curb stomp by being stronger and not letting his head go to the mat. At the end of the day, I was genuinely shocked at the kick out of 2 curb stomps. The mega curb stomp was the cherry on top. This match was just what you expect from a match that is that position. It was an attraction match that was fun and enjoyable to me. It was good. This was by far Omos's best match he's ever
I'll
had.
agree with that.
And I mean, I don't want to put so much weight on Seth Rollins, but Seth deserves it. Like, the one thing I found it interesting, and I don't know if they're going to continue or if they're going to do it on special occasions, is with Seth Rollins entering and his music shutting off and them just showing the crowd singing. I don't know if that's going to be a weekly appearance. I genuinely hope it's not. And I like that that's a pay-per-view thing where the crowd do enjoy and sing for Seth Rollins on a special occasion like a Night of Champions, like last night's Backlash. I enjoyed it. The match was solid. I mean, there's not much else to say about it. The psychology was done well. The big man versus the little underdog storytelling was good. It was good.
Do you believe Omos now is an attraction? Because he loses every big match he's in. Every attraction match he's in, he loses.
I think based on the size, he can still do it. Unless he's going to lose 5 feet, like unless he's going to lose a foot of height, he's still going to be the big guy who can wrestle, can somewhat wrestle.
Like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
Okay, but like if you're going to go this way, aside from him beating AJ Styles, what other matches can you bill as an attraction match that Omos can win? He shouldn't have beat Brock Lesnar, and thankfully he didn't. Strowman rightfully went over, and the same for Seth Rollins. I don't think there's a position to where you can put him against someone that Omos can rightfully beat, as much as you do want to build him as an attraction. I think he's fine right now.
What about you, Ignacio? What were your thoughts on the match?
Well, I thought it was good. I've actually liked almost his past 3 matches. I thought he's done very well and he's improved, and he's definitely improved as far as like the crowd engagement and working the crowd. But I don't think I'll disagree with Coby on one thing, is that I just think a lot of it's probably been the booking. Like, I think Omos should have been booked in the Royal Rumble as the guy to eliminate like 6, 7, 8 guys or whatever. And then I don't think Brock Lesnar would have lost any equity or anything or heat or whatever if he would have lost to Omos at WrestleMania. Like, I think if you wanted to build almost more of an attraction and make him more of a threat to like Roman or whoever this next world heavyweight champion's going to be, or Austin or Bobby Lashley or Austin Theory or Gunther or whatever. I mean, you could have had him beat Brock at WrestleMania and it wouldn't have hurt Brock whatsoever. You could have had him beat Seth yesterday, and it's not going to hurt Seth Rollins whatsoever. Why? Because if there's anybody with any believability, it's Omos, because he's 7'7", 400 pounds. He should be able to kick anybody's ass. And you have to try to book or work around, well, how's the next guy gonna beat the Giant? You know what I mean? And I don't think it would have hurt if he would have beaten Seth or Brock Lesnar, or if he gets a win over a upper mid card guy or even a top guy, just to make him seem as a threat and make some money off him as an attraction. Because like I said, out of everybody on that roster, he's the most believable one because of his size and his strength, and should be able to beat almost anybody.
What about you, Clark?
I think you just made some great points there, Ignacio. I personally, at this point, you have a giant like Omos. I want to ask, we've said attraction match plenty of times on this show so far. What's he attracting? Seth Rollins was the attraction last night in that match. If we want to call it an attraction match, it wasn't Omos. It wasn't. Nobody was like, I got to see if Seth can beat Omos. It was like, I got to see how Seth beats Omos. That was the logic going into the match. And I don't understand, if you're going to build a monster, he's got to be a monster. He's got to decimate people. You got to hurt them. And he doesn't do enough of it. I think he's, and Ignacio, you made a great point about how much he's improved. I mean, he took legit bumps on the power slam from Braun, a legit F5. He did a great job last night with his in-ring work itself. But booking-wise, what are we doing here? He's 7 foot, a billion, and 400 pounds. He shouldn't be taking losses to the guy in the ball gown. You know what I mean? Like, I love Seth Rollins as much as the next guy, but at the end of the day, just like, was this a vintage ROH match? We get three finishers. Like, you know, I enjoyed it. I do believe that Omos is improving. I believe that he has more than enough space to operate in the wrestling industry. He's giant. The look is off the charts. But I don't think the look and the size alone makes him a true attraction. Because I can't name anyone off the top of my head who was like, I gotta see what Omos does against Seth at Backlash. It was the other way. I gotta see what Seth does with Omos at Backlash. And I think that actually even hurts him as much as anything. I would have almost rather seen him squash someone. Last night.
No, I mean, I certainly. He needs to just get a couple of big wins under his belt, Omos, to even look like realistic. Because you can't lose every big match. You can't. Because people do remember, right? At times, wrestling fans, especially us hardcore wrestling fans, we kind of think wrestling fans, like casual wrestling fans, remember everything, which they don't. But if you're losing every pay-per-view, they are going to remember. But let's move on to the next match anyway, which was a triple threat match for the United States Championship. It was the shortest match of the night. Austin Theory retained, which I'm sure Clark is delighted about. Listen, it was a fun match. Bronson Reed looked good. It was fine for what it was. Nothing special. Not too much to talk about from me. But Clark, how do you feel about your favorite wrestler, Austin Theory, getting the win?
Again, you got the guy in generic trunks with the gelled up hair. And I mean, he's got as much charisma as Elias, right? Like, that's great. I don't get it. I do not get Austin Theory. I've never understood it. I can see the talent and I understand that he's young and all of that, but I don't get it. This is a guy that was spraying baby oil in Bobby Lashley's face in this last calendar year in the main event segment of Monday Night Raw. They were like, you know what's people will love this. What if you take some baby oil and you shoot it in Bobby's eyes? Main event. Come on, man. And Reed and Lashley are such, again, monsters. Almost like, not to harken back to the Omos stuff, but Bronson Reed and Bobby Lashley are absolute physical specimen. Both. Freak athlete, unbelievable talents, and with their size. And I get that Austin Theory can steal it or do whatever and win, but why bury those two? They should be impossible to beat almost. And you've had Theory go over both of them, and I don't even know if it's advanced Austin Theory because it's just more of the same regular guy. He's just a guy that's cocky and young, and I don't understand it.
What about you, Ignacio? What were your thoughts on the United States triple threat match?
I thought it was fine, but other than the main event and the match with Bugs Bunny and Damian Priest, that everything else was kind of put on hold and thrown together because they're really waiting to after the draft to really start new storylines and stuff, and you know, so this match was all right. I like all three guys. I like Austin Theory a lot. I think he's got a lot of potential. He's got a look. He can talk. You know, he does have charisma, and I think, you know, he's gonna work with whatever they give him because he's young, bro. He's like 24 or something. So whatever they give him, put in front of him, he's gonna do because he doesn't have the equity or the say so that like Rey Mysterio would have, or John Cena if he came in, or when he comes in, or you know, one of the veteran guys, Undertaker or Randy Orton. He doesn't have that amount of equity where he can say, no, I'm not going to do this, or hey, let's do it this way or whatever. So he's probably feels whatever they put in front of me, I'm just going to try to make the best with it. So that's what he does. And I think he does a really good job. And I think maybe within like a year or two, yeah, he needs some character development to define really who he is. Yeah, he's this cocky guy who talks down to the old guys or whatever. But I think he needs some more fire under him, kind of like what they were trying to get at with the John Cena feud. I think he needs some more quote unquote attitude or ruthless aggression or whatever. And as soon as we see that, we'll see what he can do. But for the match itself, I love Bronson Reed. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think if he's still, I believe he's still on Raw. So hopefully we can maybe see him like another against other big guys like Strowman and Gunther and those guys to see what he can do, because I know he's a great athlete for his size, and I've always liked Bobby Lashley. I would be remiss to say that they're probably going to push Bobby Lashley around in and around the main event picture with Roman. So I'm looking to see what all three of these guys can do. The match was just put together just to put a match on the card, just to get us through Backlash, into the real storylines, which would probably start beginning tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. What about you, Coby? What were your thoughts?
I gotta say, by the way, you got me so good with the Bugs money line. I basically shot. I mean, that got me so good. I had to compose myself. But go ahead, Coby. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's like nothing that hasn't been said already. Like, it was a solid match. It was a good enough match for what it was. I found it surprising that really, like, Bobby Lashley was the only one getting phenomenal. If you're going to say phenomenal crowd reactions, Lashley was the only one over. Of course, if Lashley's going to get beat down, they're going to get some heel heat. At the end of the day, Bronson Reed had his second special premium live event match, and he's been this guy who's like, yes, he's obviously not in a top storyline, but you've given him two big matches where he showed up. He was amazing in the chamber. I'll continue to say that chamber was one of the best chambers I've ever seen. And then he was solid in this match. At the end of the day, I don't know where they go with Theory, and that's the thing that I don't know. Like, that's where I'm questioning. Is he's had this character revamp post Money in the Bank droppage. He won the title. He's had solid decent matches with Seth Rollins. He had that chamber, which I'm not going to say it again. And then he had a subpar match at WrestleMania with John Cena. I don't know who you put that blame on. I don't care to put the blame on anyone right now. But that's, like, at the end of the day, this match was Theory getting not lost in the shuffle, but Theory getting stuck between a rock and a rock in the feud of Lashley and Bronson Reed, which was fun for what it was.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And like you touched upon, Ignacio, we're just basically waiting until the rosters come into effect tomorrow to really develop these new storylines. However, I really do hope they have some good storylines prepared for Bronson Reed. As like you touched upon, Coby, he has delivered. But the next match I want to talk about is Rhea Ripley versus Zelina Vega. And I loved this, right? Zelina Vega was loved by the crowd in Puerto Rico. Rhea Ripley obviously seemed like an absolute monster. She just came out and just demolished Zelina Vega. Zelina Vega was getting the, real underdog pops and all of that. She got a few big moves under her belt. It was really, really fun. And Rhea Ripley came out of it looking awesome. Really, really good. And we've complained recently about Rhea Ripley at times not looking, well, she's been in Judgment Day, not looking like a main event talent. She felt like a main event talent last night. She really did. And I know some people are saying that Zelina Vega losing, like, she didn't get that much offense or whatever. It doesn't really matter because the crowd was so into it. And yes, if it was somewhere else, the crowd would not have been into it as much, right? But because of that reaction, this Friday on SmackDown now, the week after on SmackDown, if they continue to keep a good storyline going or whatever with somebody else, Zelina Vega will be over. She really won the hearts of many fans at Backlash last night. Rhea Ripley looked like a real dominant champion as well. This match was everything I thought it should be. Super, super fun, short. I loved it. But what about you, Coby? What were your thoughts on Rhea Ripley versus Zelina Vega?
I mean, this is where I somewhat disagree. And I understand the fact that, yes, it was an incredible moment for Zelina Vega. And I'm never going to be able to put... I mean, as the head of reviewing, I put ratings on matches, and that number should mean nothing towards Zelina Vega. Zelina Vega had that moment. She got to do what she did last night. And I'm never going to say my number should define that. At the end of the day, I feel like although the match was short, I think Zelina needed more. I as much, like, that's the thing. The crowd was behind her. She had the moment. But outside of Rhea Ripley being relied on as she's strong and she's dominant, Zelina Vega wasn't believable. She was there as the hometown person. And I'm not going to say it again. She deserves all the credit. She had this moment. Of course, she's probably still crying about it, rightfully so. I don't think Zelina got enough offense on it. Even then, as a match, as if I'm looking at this as from the perspective of is this a good match, I did not think it was very good. It's a great moment for Zelina Vega. I think Zelina Vega needed to. I needed to see more out of Zelina Vega getting more offense when the entire buildup was Zelina Vega's getting so many 1-ups on Rhea Ripley. And then it ended up like she got one good. She reversed the Riptide once, and she didn't get too much. To me, it was the underwhelming match of the night. It was a match that, as a moment, delivered. As a match, it did not.
Wow. What about you, Clark? What's your reaction to that?
I actually like the way you handled that too. The way you said it, Coby. Like I understand where you're coming from, but I got to disagree on the match part. I thought from a babyface perspective, given the scenario as you broke down, you know, in Puerto Rico, obviously, but from the cape and the entrance, and I'll be critical of too many tears and emotions because people kind of overuse it from time to time in professional wrestling. That was so genuine, and that moment was so powerful. And to your point, I understand how it doesn't affect the way you would rate it bell to bell. But I will say this. For a classic babyface, her toughness, grit, and heart in a position where she's taking a lot of offense. She does reverse the Riptide. All of that, that's something you want to root for. And so when you see the electricity in that building, you see the tears, you see the standing ovation on television, even if you're not there live in Puerto Rico, next week, I'm telling you, you want to root for Zelina Vega. And I think that's what they accomplished. That's the brilliance of what they accomplished. I hear you on the offense part. I get that, right? But if she gets in too much offense, is the narrative not that she was robbed this morning, as opposed to she showed all the grit, all the determination, all the heart in the world, in front of the fans, the moment being so powerful, the crowd being so behind her, and the standing ovation to leave the ring. She walked out of that ring a much bigger star than she walked in. And that's the coolest part to me. That's the part I want to focus on. And I loved the match too. I really did. I hear where you're coming from on some of the things, but I really liked the way it was laid out because it also benefited Ripley. And that's so hard to do, is to get both sides right. Ripley looked awesome. Ben, you made an excellent point about main event star, right? She looked like that could have been the main event. If that is the main event, given the electricity, I don't know. I don't know if it's hotter at the end of the show. You never know, because if you close the show with that standing ovation, that ovation doesn't end. Not for a long time, because there's no more promo packages. There's no more video packages to play on the screen to get you to the next match. There's nothing left. If that standing O for Zelina in the middle of the ring happens on the end of the card, it's even bigger. Yeah. And I think that's what's so brilliant about the way it played out. I think it worked for both performers, and that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the match got Zelina Vega over, right? And it also made Rhea Ripley look like a beast, like we discussed. Rhea Ripley looked unstoppable during it, and we complained that Rhea hasn't felt like a top star at times, and she did during that match. So it got a star over while making Rhea Ripley feel like a star. So at the end of the day, I really can't complain about it. But what did you think, Ignacio?
People say that she doesn't seem like a top star yet or whatever. Like, bro, this was her first title defense since WrestleMania. I mean, other than that, she's been on segments with Judgment Day, and she'll have her interview spots, and they'll give her some talk time or some segments or whatever. But other than that, this is her first title defense. So kind of give her a break. She is a star. She carries herself like a star. She has a good look, a good ring generalship, etc., etc. And I think I'm going to go the other way. I think Zelina Vega, but I understand why they did it, because they wanted to pop the crowd and give them the energy, because it was in Puerto Rico, her home Providence or what have you. So, I mean, I was gonna say that I think Selena Vega, I think she got too much offense. I think that's the only drawback to Rhea Ripley is she sells for these little girls that she goes up against a little bit too much, and it's kind of sometimes it can come off as kind of ridiculous. But I think it should have been more like of a squash match for her. But other than that, the match was okay. I mean, it was to pop the crowd, and like I said, to give the hometown girl, her 15 minutes or 5 minutes of fame or whatever you want to call it. So it was okay for what it was, but I think it just should have been more of a squash to make Rhea look like a monster. And I think I've been hearing some friends of mine that have been going to some house shows recently, or I know for the first night of the draft in Corpus Christi, one of the dark matches was Rhea versus Raquel. And I've heard in a couple of house shows that they've been matching up together. So it looks like maybe we might get like a Raquel versus Rhea down the line sometime in the near future. That's something I'd like to see, but I think they need to change Raquel's character up because she's coming way off too much like a powder puff.
Oh gosh, I'm certain we'll get into that conversation another day. But let's now move on to the next match, which was the match everybody was talking about coming out of Backlash, and that was Bad Bunny and Damian Priest, and this was a very fun match. Was it overbooked? Yes, of course, but it was still very, very fun. The crowd were having the time of their lives. I mean, we spoke yesterday about why it didn't main event, about, it would have put a lot of pressure on Bad Bunny. But truthfully, after the show, I think this should have main evented. Carlito's return was fantastic. I loved that. I was always a big Carlito guy as a kid. Sadio Vega's pop was amazing as well. And it was just overall such a feel-good match and moment. The crowd were singing Bad Bunny's theme as well. I mean, I saw the translation for that today. I'm a bit surprised some of those words were on WWE television, but okay. It was super fun. I really enjoyed it. But Clark, what did you think?
I loved it. I mean, at the end of the day, we had this conversation yesterday about it main eventing or not. I actually think it was in the perfect spot on the card. As much as it could have main evented, there was no guarantee it plays out the same way. Hindsight's always 20/20. And I think the placement on the card, it ramped up the electricity for the show. I know people have said after the fact, like, the last two matches, it kind of cooled down. Sometimes that's got to be the case. Sometimes that's just the way a show has been booked, and that's where you're at, right? Like, you can't always pick the show stealer for the main event. I always like to point back to WrestleMania 17. Which match stole the show? And Bully Ray and Stone Cold talked about it on Broken Skull Sessions. Which match stole the show? TLC, by far. Who filled the house? The main event. And I don't know if Bad Bunny filled that house or if wrestling filled that house. And we don't have to have that discussion because of the way it played out. I thought it was as good as you could ask for. Everything you could ask for out of that. From the entrances, the overbooking was perfect for this match in one of the few times that it is, right? Like, for a match to be overbooked, it's one of the few times it worked 100%. And I dug it. It's funny later, not now, but there is a debate to be had. Is Bunny better than Logan Paul? Maybe.
Oh, wow. Big statement there from you, Clark. And that is a debate which is going on online at the minute a lot. But Coby, what did you think of this match? And I will also ask you, Logan Paul or Bad Bunny?
I mean, at the end of the day, you look at the moment Bad Bunny created, and it was in Puerto Rico, and he had the people. He had what was it, 17,000 or 17,000 something hundred, whatever. He had them all in the palm of their hand, in the palm of his hands. At the end of the day, Logan Paul hasn't had that chance. Might not ever do that type of thing. But at the end of the day, this was in Puerto Rico. And obviously there was a reason why Bad Bunny was involved. And that's why I think they said there were fears that people thought Bad Bunny was going to do a concert. and it was like, oh well, he's just hosting, and then it turned he was wrestling. But it was like, I think that was one of the fears when they were originally started to sell the tickets, that people were going to buy it because they thought Bad Bunny would be doing a concert. Well, at the end of the day, he even did with his entrance, and that was just a tremendous entrance. Everything was, I mean, it was a magical match. I don't think it was overbooked. When you think of overbooked, I was expecting way more. Like, I was expecting a Judgment Day for more than just the portion they were in. I like the moment. Carlito and Savio Vega got massive pops. I hope Carlito stays and has a role in the LWO soon. Not soon, but continually. At the end of the day, this match should have main evented. There is not a, like, it is very hard for you to sit here and argue that and convince me otherwise that this match should not have been the main event. I think it should have.
What about you, Ignacio? What did you think of the match?
And it was embarrassing. Like, this is what regresses wrestling, this type of stuff. Allowing celebrities like this, like Bugs Bunny, go up. I don't like that they put Damian Priest in this program or situation where he loses to this guy. And I know it was overbooked and gimmicks and schmaz and all this stuff and the interference, but I think Damian Priest should be farther along than what he is now, because out of everybody in the Judgment Day, he's getting less TV time. The least, at least maybe up until the last couple of weeks, but he was getting the least TV time, the least promo time. He didn't have anything to do with WrestleMania, and I just think he should be a little bit farther along and not be in these gimmick matches with these wannabe wrestler celebrities. And that statement that Bad Bunny is better than Logan Paul, it's just Clark can't be serious about that. Like, I can't see him on camera right now, but I mean, it's just,
I don't think Logan's that good, man. I really don't.
Oh God.
Do you think Logan's that good? I don't want to get fully into it, but Ignacio, do you think Logan's like that good?
Yeah, I think he's amazing. He's absolutely tremendous, and he actually takes the business seriously. And I don't think Bugs Bunny does. I will say this though. I will say this that, dude, and I understand why they did it, but this guy sells out stadiums at his concerts, like 50, 60, 70,000 seat stadiums in Mexico. He did 2 nights in a row where there was like over 100 fans to see him. And I'll ask my friends and I'll ask coworkers and whoever, like, hey, have you heard of this song by Bad Bunny or whatever? And they're like, no, who the fuck is that? So where did this guy come from? Where does he go? Who listens to him? Or how does he fill his stadiums? He's not papering them because they talk about the $1 million box offices or whatever. So I get why they do stuff like that. They want to attract more eyes to the product. But look, if you're not a wrestling fan by the time you're like 18 or whatever, I would maybe 21, but that's a stretch. Then you're never going to be a wrestling fan. It's just that's the way it is.
I know people who've gotten in later than that. I know people who've gotten in later.
I hear where he's coming from on that one. I will say this though. I mean, Bad Bunny, and I know where you're coming from on, like, I don't personally listen to Bad Bunny. Like, I don't listen to Logan Paul either. Like, podcast wise or music wise, right? Like, I don't have a dog in that fight. But stroke wise, they're kind of on the same plane. And if they're both taking it that seriously, based on the performances, as great as Logan Paul's been, it's been a lot of spot fests. So I find it funny that, like, right? Like, I know you don't like the flippy stuff, Ignacio. I actually find it ironic. By comparison, nobody's doing more high flying stuff than Logan. And Bad Bunny's out here. I mean, Canadian Destroyers, things like that, like, the wrestling moves. And so for me, and I mean, I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm not like a hardcore fan of either one, but I would say of the two, Bad Bunny's shown the better in-ring acumen.
I think when Logan Paul does the flippy stuff that he does do, much like Rey Mysterio and stuff like that, it makes sense, like, during the match. And
yeah,
I don't want to go off too far. We can have another conversation another time about it. You know what I mean? For sure. But I mean, yeah, I'll say this also is that getting away from that, because he's making me sick. I don't want to talk about him no more.
I hear you.
Like, I like the fact that they brought like Carlito because of the colognes and Savio Vega into the mix, because that's just Triple H that he's acknowledging the history and the Puerto Rican wrestling universe that they have there, because they are in their own universe as far as IWA and the promotions they've had
the clones.
there,
I mean,
and all that stuff. So that
the history is
good. Yeah, it was good for them to incorporate them.
Yeah,
it absolutely was. It was truly, I mean, almost you could say a magical moment last night with this match, and the social media views as well. That match across social media has had the eclipse of it. I've had 18.5 million views, which is, as of this was a couple of hours ago too, so it's probably over 20 by now. But those are some crazy numbers, which is nothing but good for WWE and nothing but good for the wrestling business, viewership wise. But now let's move on to the next match, which was the 6-man tag team match between the Bloodline, or to be specific, Solo Sikoa and the Usos of the Bloodline, facing Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. And this was a fun 6-man tag team match. And the big story from it was that Solo at one point looked to be set to turn on Jay, and then he just didn't have it in him. He couldn't do it. At the end of the match, Jay and Solo were like, they were not happy with each other, obviously, but Jimmy was just laughing about it. But here's the thing. How can the Usos now continue in the Bloodline? How can they continue, working for Roman, if that's what you want to call it? Because what happened during that match basically confirmed that Roman had told Solo to take the Usos out. So at this point, why would you still be happy if you know that it's a ticking time bomb until you're kicked out of the Bloodline? At this point, surely you trying to turn on Roman first or something like that. It doesn't particularly make much sense to me if they do suddenly act like they're fine on Friday. I really hope they don't, but obviously we'll have to wait for Friday for that. But yeah, we said on yesterday's show that the Bloodline story, it's kind of felt like the same thing each and every week since WrestleMania. Hopefully that moment last night is now what accelerates it a bit more. I'm really not sure what's next for Riddle, who took the pin. Obviously we said yesterday it would have been awesome for RK Bro, well, Randy Orton to return and for RK Bro to basically, I guess, turn heel on Sami and Kevin. That would have been great, but obviously health issues and all of that. Randy Orton's still unable to return. Hopefully Orton comes back soon, because I don't really know what Riddle's gonna do from here. But we're gonna find out what Owens and Zayn, what's next for them on Monday Night Raw, presumably tomorrow night. But I'll head to you first, Ignacio, on this one. What did you think of the 6-man tag team match?
Oh, I thought it was really good. I think this was probably the second best match on the card. I really enjoyed it. But look at who's involved. Is Kevin and even though I've said derogatory things about Riddle in the past as far as his character, there's never anything been wrong with his in-ring stuff. I think Riddle's really good, but I think at this point, him coming back into the fold, I think they're really testing him as far as like him picking up some losses lately to Solo, and then yesterday's match. I think it's kind of like they're trying to build him back up as a character, not only on screen but also off screen. They want to try to see if he's going to be patient and do what they say and all that stuff. And as far as like the Bloodline storyline, like I think it definitely peaked because they've kind of beat everybody already, with the exception of a couple of guys that are coming over from Raw to SmackDown. But I think the story is going to be how is the Bloodline going to implode? You know what I mean? Because like I said, they beat everybody. Now the story is what's going to be the blasting cap? What's going to be that thing that blows everything up and blows up the bloodline, and who's going to go with who's going to side with who? Is Jay going to be on his own, or is Jimmy going to be with him? It's going to be like an implosion. Who's going to side with who, and then where are they going to go from there? I think that's the only thing that's going to keep things interesting, because if you weren't going to pull the trigger as far as making Cody champion and defeating Roman, right? And what's going to happen from there? What's going to make the storyline more interesting? And they decided not to do that. Now you got to go with, well, how's the Bloodline going to implode? I think that's the storyline here. So Sami and Kevin are going to go do their own thing on Raw, and I'm interested to see where they're going to put them, against over there on Raw. maybe an RK Bro feud. But yeah, I thought the match was good. Great, second best match of the night, right behind the main event. I wasn't disappointed at all. Now I'm interested to see what's going to happen with Roman on SmackDown.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm really hoping Orton does return, as RK Bro versus Owens and Zayn would be an interesting feud for certain. But Clark, what was your thoughts on the 6-man tag team match?
It's funny. I threw out the Orton take yesterday, and I was excited about it with the ties to Puerto Rico. He lost his world title there and whatnot. I'd love to see RK Bro versus Sammy and Kevin, of course. But at this point, after what happened last night felt a little bit like a bloodline heavy match, I would say, where it was really more about that story. I'd be interested once we get the roster settled here. How about an RKO out of nowhere on Riddle?
Ooh.
That might be, wait a minute, I'm done with this RK Bro stuff. And just that for the return, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, because that'd be an awesome feud. And to Ignacio's point about how great bell to bell Riddle is, I think he's a logical candidate to work with Randy on his way back, because Randy delivers classics. He just does. But on his way back from a horrible injury, like he's had, a guy like Riddle, who he knows, trusts, younger, good athlete, it's kind of the perfect matchup. I kind of now, after last night, I thought, not that, I don't even know the health update on Randy, right? So, yeah. But after last night, I thought that was kind of your shot to set up for Randy and Riddle, or for RK Bro versus Sammy and Kevin. Yeah. I think now the move is definitely you go RK out of nowhere on Riddle. And
the question I have for you, though, Clark, is if that was the case, wouldn't everybody be rooting for Randy because he's just returned?
That's what I think. Actually,
Riddle's not that well liked either.
I think this is where you turn Riddle heel.
Oh,
2. So it's right, and then on that first run, maybe by the rematch, you do a double turn on each other.
Yeah.
If Riddle kind of gets over it, heel. But to Ignacio's point about the character, I dig it in some ways. Like it, he's the guy that like is super affable, but like if you fought him, you're in trouble. That I do dig that aspect, but I understand like there's some corniness, there's some childlike things that aren't the best work wise for Riddle. Like the scooters I got, but like, dude, you're riding a scooter. Like, I mean, I don't know. At the end of the day, I think the move is Randy Riddle actually out of the gates. I thought it was a reunion. I think it's actually to just put the foot down and end that and have that rivalry out of the gates be his return.
I just don't. I'm going to be completely honest. I love that. I love it on paper, but it's just the fact of I don't know how somebody can turn heel by being RKO'd. Like I know then you could do the next week, or Riddle like turns on everyone. Oh, I hate you guys. You turned on me, whatever, something like that. That he could do it.
Get whiny. Like it's kind of what my thought was there. Like if he just gets whiny, like how could my friend do this to me? Because that's heel heat too. Right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You know what I mean? Not necessarily like, oh, like I am a heel now because I got RKO'd, but like,
remember the age though of WWE, a lot of WWE's audience. They are quite young. That's something which I think might work in AEW, but in WWE, because of some young, I think that might confuse some of the young kids where Riddle would still come across like the face, and they're like, why is everyone cheering for,
Randy?
Yeah.
I hear that for sure.
That's the issue you run into. But Coby, what were your thoughts on the 6-man tag team match last night?
I mean, Sami Zayn's still over. He had the people singing. I've been a big fan of Sami Zayn because of that. I mean, he's become one of my favorite wrestlers once again with the whole honorary use stuff. This match excelled in 2 things: great tag team psychology and the amazing storytelling. At the end of the day, yes, it was too bloodline heavy and bloodline centric based on what was happening. Having Sikoa tag himself in, then start to tag with the Usos. Then at one point, him and Jey Uso traded tagging themselves in, and the tension was building. And at the end of the day, the match was solid. it might have seemed like it ran a little too long. And the only thing I can complain is the fact that it was placed after Bad Bunny. You're going to have that magical match between Damian Priest and Bad Bunny, and then you're going to have a match that really shouldn't have been the crowd break match, even though the crowd was really hot for Sami Zayn and they were cheering for the Usos. I mean, there's not a lot you can complain about the match at the end of the day, but I do think it is curious to see where the bloodline goes, and that's where WWE has to say, okay, we have to get people back into this, and something has to happen within the bloodline for us to deliver, because a lot of people were all gung-ho with Cody Rhodes defeating it, and now we have Roman saying, well, it's the third inning, and we got a lot more story to tell, and it's like, well, what's next for the bloodline? You got to have something that is compelling.
Yeah, they absolutely do need something. And maybe this will be it. And I hope it's slightly accelerated too, because I don't want it to be too slow. I like a slow burn storytelling, but then this feels, since Mania, it's felt a little too slow, and that hasn't been.
We don't want Bray Wyatt slow.
Basically, Coby, we don't want Bray Wyatt slow. But we're gonna talk about now the main event of the evening, which was Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. And I'm not going to get all dramatic here and say this was a bad match. I'm not going that far at all. But I didn't really like it. There was an F5 Cody kicked out of. There was 2 Crossroads Lesnar kicked out of, and the match was only 9 minutes long. Now, let's go back to WrestleMania 33, I believe. Where it was Goldberg versus Lesnar. There was a lot of big moves and there was a lot of kickouts. But it was fast-paced. It felt super, it felt just not, you couldn't take your eyes off it from the start. Cody versus Brock, despite the big moves, kind of felt like a slow 9 minutes at times. It was really weird to explain. The finish with Cody, the Kimura into the pin from Cody. I wasn't a big fan of it purely because I'm going to say it now. You guys, I know, I said it WrestleMania weekend and you guys were like, no, it's not going to happen. The WWE's audience is different from AEW, which is true, but they're not going to turn on Cody. I'm going to say this right now. I think in the next few months, the fans are going to turn on Cody. I do. This was basically like a heel, like a real cheap win, a heel win almost, because of that, the role from the Kimura. It wasn't a great match. Cody winning it, if this was the only match between them, Cody winning it like that, I'm not a fan of. If this isn't the only match between them, then I'm not a fan of Cody winning. I think Lesnar should have won. I think Cody should have fought to get the win. Overall, I was not a huge fan of this match, to be brutally honest about it. But Ignacio, I'll head to you first. What were your thoughts on the main event?
Well, they just tried to combine like a Cody-style match with a Brock-style match, with Brock with the heavy, hard-hitting powerhouse moves, and then Cody's real ring general, methodical, likes to tell a story. So they tried to like kind of intermingle the two, and I just think it was like a weird combination. But I thought it was good. Boy, you said it was 9 minutes. I thought it was longer than 9 minutes. So you brought a good point there, where it just seemed like slow, but not really, because it was 9 minutes. But bro, it's a Brock Lesnar match. I mean, Brock's, he's gonna go 7 to 15 minutes, depending on who it is, maybe closer to 20, or 18 or whatever. But it's just, I'll bring it another thing to your point that I understand why they did the finish. But it's like, why do they feel they need to protect Brock when Brock can lose? Brock could have lost yesterday. Brock could have lost on Raw, and Brock could lose on SmackDown, and it's not going to make any difference because it's Brock Lesnar. Brock's because we talked about attractions. Brock Lesnar's an attraction.
Yeah,
he's the attraction, if anything. So it's just like Cody could have pinned Brock after those two, his finish and Crossroads, and Brock would have been fine, and Cody would have got a legitimate, fair win, clean win, and they could shoot him into a world title picture and a big main event world title match coming up in the Saudi pay-per-view or what have you. And now it's kind of like you say, well, he sneaked the win in on Brock. He didn't really beat Brock convincingly. And those are the questions that now WWE has posed to the fans, as far as like they've allowed the fans to now say, well, he didn't really beat him. I mean, he beat him on a technicality or a slight technical maneuver or whatever. And it's kind of like a chicken shit win if you want to put it straightforward like that. So I don't see with any issue, just have him beat him clean and have him beat him fairly and somewhat convincingly, and it's not going to hurt Brock whatsoever. Like, it's not like Brock's not going to draw if he gets pinned, his shoulders pinned, at least once in a while by somebody other than Roman. You know, so just, you know, they want to build up Cody Rhodes and they want him to be a legitimate champion, a man of the people champion, contender. He needed to pin Brock, beat him convincingly. And I think that's what they should have done there, and they didn't. So as far as the crowd turning on Cody, it just depends what Cody can do with what they give him, because one thing that's keeping Cody alive is his promos. He's been killing on promos. He's the best promo in wrestling, in my opinion, right now in the past couple of months. So if he can keep that going, maybe he'll be okay. But I agree that in the next couple of months, if he's not booked well, the crowd is going to start turning on Cody.
Yeah. Well, Clark, I'm going to head to you next, and I'm going to ask you, Clark, what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had all this good stuff to say. You know, I'm the biggest Brock Lesnar fan in the world, but Cody's the best promo in the business right now. What do you want to talk about? He comes out in a suit with a tie clip and tells us about his feelings for 7 minutes. It's like, yeah, I love you, Ignacio, but I cannot disagree more with that. He's not the best promo in the business right now. But for me, I thought there was much to be desired left on the table last night. I mean, the Kimura is a shoulder lock, right? Well, it's a wrist lock. The pressure's on the shoulder, and Cody came off a torn pectoral. He's stuck in a Kimura, and he has the ability to get a roll up. Like, you're kidding me, on that surgically repaired pec? You have the beast incarnate, Brock Lesnar, the biggest, baddest dude in all of the WWE, cranking on it, and you're telling me he has the mental fortitude to, I guess, roll him up? That bugged me, and the fact that it wasn't even mentioned, I would have to go look again and make sure, but I do believe it was on the surgically repaired arm. It was on the one with the scar. It was on that arm. That's the side Brock likes to pick when he delivers the Kimura. He never did it in MMA, but he did it. He's done it in the UFC, and that's on. We've got the bruise action figure. We've got all that stuff. We all know about it. And you're cranking on that arm, and somehow he rolls him up, and we're all coming out of this not thinking, like, what unbelievable. It's just storytelling wise, it's one of those things that on paper could be amazing, but execution, it just wasn't. And I'm such a big Brock guy. I was disappointed that the match didn't turn out the way I thought it could. Love seeing the hard way blood. Of course. I love that. It was awesome. But I mean, at the end of the day, you can't book Brock to crank on a surgically repaired 9 months away. It's all we've talked about. Half of the promos that Cody delivers is talking about. Remember, he sat for a minute in the middle of the ring, took his whole suit off. It was the oddest thing I've ever seen. And then just to point at the scar, he got a big pop, but like, huh? Like, just rip the shirt off. I mean, my dad made the joke about it. He was like, dude, like, you can get the buttons replaced. Rip the shirt. Like, what are you doing? And then you got 90 seconds in the middle of the ring and just to show off your scar. Then you have a move as effective as a Kimura lock delivered by Brock Lesnar on a surgically repaired pectoral, and we don't even talk about it. It's not a storyline coming out of the match. I don't get it. It was disappointing to me too, because I believe in both talents. I know how good they both are. This should have been a can't miss, and they missed.
I forgot to point out about the blood, the fact that Brock Lesnar was split open, and it was split open badly too. There was a lot of blood. But Coby, what were your thoughts on the main event?
I mean, I don't want to piggyback on Clark's statement. At the end of the day, in the entire buildup was Cody Rhodes and WWE commentators saying Brock Lesnar is the most decorated sports athlete.
Yes.
And you're sitting there and you have Cody Rhodes out wrestle him.
Yes.
That makes no. From an angle of you're building Brock Lesnar as one of the best combat sports athlete, and Cody Rhodes out wrestles him on his bad shoulder. That booking makes no sense. At the end of the day, this match makes it seem like there's a rematch coming at Night of Champions or at Money in the Bank. There's a rematch coming, and what for? A rematch makes sense when Cody has to fight for something. Cody won and left. Brock sat there in the ring, and if you go on social media, he got a standing O. Phenomenal. Brock is amazing. At the end of the day, this match left us room for a rematch, and why? I sat there yesterday and I pitched it. If you're going to do this as a multi-match program, you have to have Brock beat him up. You have to have Brock be the destroyer he truly is. I 100% agree with Cody Rhodes being one of the best. He's one of the best. The only in WWE, the only other one I can argue is Paul Heyman. But Cody Rhodes has since the beginning of the year. Cody Rhodes has been the best promo artist in WWE. I can argue Paul Heyman. I don't know who else I can argue. Roman hasn't been on enough to deliver that. But at the end of the day, this match has weird booking. It's going to give us the fact that there's going to be another rematch. And for what? Cody already won? And what's going to happen? Cody has to win the next cup, one or two. If there's one match, he has to win it again. And if there's two, he's going to win the last one. That makes this win make no sense. It makes no sense. And you're going to sit there, and I don't think the fans are going to turn on him. But the booking is not going to be good. You're going to have a lot of the IWC turning on him, saying, well, why are you doing this angle with him? Cody Rhodes can't be in the world title picture. He's not. No way. He can't be in the world heavyweight title picture, and that's why this has to extend. But it makes no sense with Cody getting the first victory. Booking wise, it sucks.
Yeah, I'm 110% with you there. I'm trying to find it again now. Right, yes, I've got it here. Some breaking news that WWE have announced the people who will be in the tournament for the World Heavyweight Championship. And that is Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Shinsuke Nakamura, Damian Priest, Finn Balor, and The Miz from Raw. So that's going to be 2 triple threat matches. And then on SmackDown, Edge, Sheamus, Bobby Lashley, Rey Mysterio, Austin Theory, and AJ Styles. So we're going to get into that tomorrow. We're not going to talk about it today because this was a jam-packed show, guys, but it was absolutely brilliant to have you listening. If you did enjoy, please leave us a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Spotify, a follow and 5-star. It helps out massively. We're here every day, and we'll be back here tomorrow at the same time. Me, Coby, and Chaos will be back on the show as well tomorrow, and we'll talk about that World Championship tournament. But thank you, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.